On the morning of December 6, 1917, a disaster occurred called the Halifax explosion. Welcome back to my channel, guys. I am Nate Tannick, and today we're going to be discussing, like I just previously mentioned, the Halifax explosion. So, what is the Halifax explosion? The Halifax explosion happened when the Norwegian ship SS Imo collided with the French ship SS Mont Blanc. The thing is, one of those ships was carrying military explosives, guns, and weapons, and they collided, causing a fire. And I'm about to explain what happened next. Now, the Halifax explosion still, to this day, 2018, remains as one of history's largest man-made explosions ever. Around 2,000 people lost their lives in this explosion, and it was a tragedy. It was basically nukes went off in a town, a city. So 2,000 people lost their lives, and 9,000 people were injured. Actually, a cool fact about this is many of the people actually died by the flying debris from the ships and the city, the parts of everything flying towards their direction, and boom, it just struck them and hit them. And so most of them, yes, died by the initial explosion, but some of them got the injury and death, sadly, from the debris flying caused by the explosion. The energy released from this explosion was 2.9 kilotons of TNT. And people were standing on the shoreline because it was just an average day. There's nothing wrong. It was like if I walked outside right now and then I see across a distance an explosion and then I'm dead. Nothing to indicate it. So it was a crazy amount, and it was horrible. It must have been horrific, and it must have been terrifying to be there. I feel so sorry for the survivors and obviously the victims of that situation. Nearly all of the man-made and not man-made structures within an 800-mile radius, which is half of a mile, was completely obliterated in its path. Even out of that radius, you're still not safe because it still got heavily damaged. In the 800 meter, that's just when it got completely obliterated. And after the initial explosion, a tsunami struck. A tsunami. Just to top off the death, the pain, the fire. I mean, that kind of helped if you know what I mean. And just all the people, even some of the survivors who survived the blast, they open their eyes and see a giant wave of water coming, caused by the explosion. And actually something cool, the SS Imo, which was the Norwegian ship, got washed up on shore because of the tsunami. The tsunami also scattered fragments of the SS Mont Blanc, the French ship, over kilometers of area. So there was the stern over there, then the bow was way over there. Because it was the SS Mont Blanc that obviously it exploded into pieces. The tsunami created by the blast also wiped out one of the First Nation communities. And I'm sorry if I pronounce this wrong, the Mi'kmaq. Totally butchered that name. I'll put it on screen how it's spelled. And the tsunami destroyed them. And they are one of the first. They're a First Nation tribes. That's horrible. That's horrible too. At first, the jury decided that it was the SS Mont Blanc that caused the initial explosion. That was the true damaging reason for it. But we later discovered that it was actually both vessels had a huge part to play in the explosion. So it was not just the SS Mont Blanc's fault. Following the explosions, hospitals in the area quickly became packed and full. So if you didn't make it in one, you were left on the streets. You had nowhere to go unless you traveled far. 9,000 people were injured. And there was not much places nearby that place at the time, at least. And they're all packed. People were burnt, cut, like impaled. Some people just mental trauma. That probably wasn't a hospital, but can you imagine the mental scarring of going through that and living? Probably worse than the Titanic. On the bright side, if you didn't make it to a hospital, rescue trains the day after the explosion started coming in to Halifax and taking people who were left just to die because they didn't have any more room for them. So at least if you didn't make it to a hospital, you still had a chance of survival. But most people died in that one day while they were coming because the injuries were very, very severe and fatal. Actually, more lives could have been saved, but I'm itchy. More lives could have been saved, but the train coming from Ontario, which is where a lot of the places were, and United States were caught up by blizzards because it was in December, which is winter, obviously, unless you're in Australia. Well, actually, actually, shut up. Okay, and they were actually caught up by blizzards, right? So they couldn't make it in time, causing more people to die. But obviously, you can't blame them for that. What, are they gonna tell Mother Nature to stop? That's dumb. Actually, following the blast, there was an inspection done in the city, and hardly a window, one single window in all of Halifax properly survived the blast. Imagine, not one window, right there, this is a window. If I was in Halifax, there's no window. For the fortunate people who survived the explosion, their lives turned very unfortunate. For all the people who did survive, they basically all who lived in Halifax became homeless for a long time until they can find a place to stay because their home didn't exist, obliterated by the explosion. And it is very, very sad to know, even if you did survive that tragedy, which probably your friends and family most likely did not, you didn't have a place to go to sleep at night. So they're on the streets in the wreckage of the explosion and the horrors that just ensued the day before. In Halifax today, in 2018, there are many memorials for the Halifax explosion there that you can visit yourself. And honestly, I think that's great that even though it was 101 years ago, we haven't forgot. Because if that happened now, we wouldn't forget for years and years to go. And it's the same thing for back then. And I think that is amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. And on the Halifax explosion, and I'll be back for another disaster, or maybe not, maybe a historical event. And you know what? Maybe something that's not an historical event. I'll be back to explain something to you. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Ain't no grave can hold my body down.